Good evening, guys. Welcome back to my channel. This is Coach DC from All 22 Films. This will be my reaction video to the Ravens' 24-7 win over the Philadelphia Eagles. A lot to say. I'll have some graphics here, some stats to throw at you, and I'm going to give you some data that I've compiled. I'm not sure how completely accurate it is in terms of encompassing all the under center play action concepts, but I felt like Declan Doyle ate Vic Fangio for lunch on the under center play action game, averaging over 10 yards per play. For the game, the Ravens offense averaged almost 6 yards per play, 5.8. The young wide receivers obviously were a big story. Fagnano, the quarterback, the backup, or I guess third string quarterback, but he came in and threw the football a ton. Doyle's play calling, I think, deserves a lot of credit. Very impressive stuff, especially the under center game. Fagnano, he was actually tearing up the Eagles' second, third string guys, whether he was under center or in the shotgun. Especially that touchdown to Jacoby Lane over the middle in the second quarter. That was amazing. I do want to talk about the under center stuff here in a moment, but I want to let you know something. Don't ever catch yourself watching an Eagles announcing crew. I think it was Ross Tucker. Just did not know how much of a homer and disconnected from the game someone could be. Next time I'll make sure that I get the chance to listen to Rod Woodson and the new guy, whoever that is. It was really difficult to listen to Ross Tucker, to be honest with you. Essentially relate every situation in the game to himself. But a couple of things to talk about that are negative here. Obviously, the Ravens' offensive line did struggle really early. I'm going to give you something that I did that's somewhat unusual. I actually, once the third quarter started and I had written some halftime notes up, I went back and watched the first two possessions because my perception of the first two possessions from an offensive line standpoint was pretty low, pretty poor. And some people in the Discord, Ravens Discord, and on social media didn't necessarily have the same opinion. So I went back and watched the first two possessions. I'll get to that here in a minute. Talk about the defense for a moment. We finished the game. I'll let some stats flow through here so you guys can see some of those. We finished the game with 31 first downs to Philly's 6. So clearly their new offense under, I think it's Mannion is how you say his name, did not roll out well against Jesse Minter and Anthony Weaver's defense. At the time that it's 17-0, early in the fourth quarter, I think when Reed scrambles for a touchdown, we have 26 first downs and the Eagles have 2. Minter and Weaver's defense was fantastic to that point. Basically, through 3 quarters, the Eagles had 2 first downs. To that point, or up to that point, before Cole Payton really came in and did some things, especially on the ground, scrambling and or read option plays. Up to that point, through 3 quarters, they're 0 for 8 on third downs, averaging 2.7 yards per play. They're 9 of 16 passing for 46 yards. And those stats, I was compiling them at the exact moment that Ross Tucker was interviewing one of the Eagles' offensive linemen, starting offensive lineman, and talking about the scheme being so great. So the dichotomy there was just impossible for me to ignore. On 8 drives, not a single third down conversion. And during that time, it's not like they turned the football over either. Their first down didn't occur until I think 8.5 minutes left into the second quarter. It was kind of like a quick slant to Darius Cooper into the boundary. So, like I said, I'm going to spend a significant amount of time discussing our first 2 possessions because Ebiketie Espinosa, I think is how you say his name, some of the defensive tackles on the inside. I really felt like pass pro was very difficult for us early in the game. And in fact, when the Eagles did choose to blitz Jeremiah Trotter or Jihad Campbell, those guys were disruptive. They were very decisive. We had difficulty blocking them in the run game as well. So what I want to do now is go back to the opening first 2 possessions. And again, I did this like right as the third quarter started. So some of my third quarter analysis is going to have a hole or a gap, if you will. I feel like the reports on our offensive line were glowing. No, obviously, Ronnie Stanley not out there. Neither was Roger Rosengarten or John Simpson. I really can't wait to see the all-22 in the end zone angle because we hope that Vega was sharper than some of the other guys that I'm going to really criticize here. So I'm going to go through play by play and talk about the breakdowns that I see from an offensive line standpoint as well as the things that we did well on these opening 2 possessions. So again, once I've talked about these first 2 possessions here, I'll go over the under center data, which I think is pretty amazing as far as what Doyle was able to do against a Vic Fangio defense. So first possession, 1st and 10, we try to go toss to the outside from 12 personnel. Cuevas is asked to block Espinosa or Espinosa, however you say his name, the defensive lineman that spent most of his career with the Bills. Just silly, right, to ask Cuevas to do that. He's not going to be able to execute it. We only get 2 yards. However, the very next snap, have to give credit to Doyle here. There is a little bit of pressure up the middle as Huntley makes this throw to Hibner. It's the out and up into the boundary. And ironically, it's Espinosa, however. I need to stop saying his name, really. That's in coverage. And I think Doyle really caught Fangio in a bind here, into the boundary. He knew from a formation standpoint or situation what coverage was going to be there and how to attack it. The out and up to Hibner hits for 29 yards. Huntley throws the ball quick. Caught the Eagles in really a bad coverage scheme, but there is some pressure off the right side. It's a stunting D tackle. Looks like to me he beat Ioane pretty clean. Very next play is a 1st and 10. This will be the 3rd play of our first possession. And Emory Jones got a pretty good trap block, to be honest with you. But Jeremiah Trotter is left totally unblocked. It ends up being a 1-yard gain for our running back. You can't leave the Mike linebacker unblocked on a trap play up the middle. So some issues there, in my opinion, as far as communication. Who should pick up the Mike linebacker? Someone should. You certainly can't leave a linebacker totally unblocked at the point of attack, a Mike linebacker especially, let alone somebody like Jeremiah Trotter, who played really well tonight. So leaves us with a 2nd and 9 after that 1-yard gain. And left tackle, granted it's a screen, a tight end screen into the boundary to Hibner, who had an exceptional performance, I thought, beyond just the 29-yard catch into the boundary. This 2nd and 9 is a tight end screen. Goes for like 7 or 8 yards, somewhere in that range. But Vincent off the left side gets beat clean instantly. And granted, it is a screen, but oftentimes on a screen, the tackles are pass setting, a true actual pass set, and the interior offensive linemen are running the screen. I thought it was a poor look from Vincent. He looked really slow on 2 or 3 of these first couple of snaps. I thought he settled down as the game went on. So 3rd and 2. We did pick up the 1st down here again on the first possession. Offensive line, not really a big push. I don't know about you. I did not notice us moving people laterally and vertically at the same time. The ensuing play, 1st and 10, after we picked up or converted that 3rd and 2, Trotter, again, the blitz. Emory Jones, super slow steps here to recognize it. He was really poor, in my opinion, on this first drive, other than that trap block, like I said. And so it goes down as a sack for Trotter on Huntley, who tried to escape. 2nd and 10, they give us like a 5-1 look. And in my opinion, Vega does a really nice job on the right side on a stunt. But Emory Jones is beat by that left-handed rip move from Ty Robinson, a defensive tackle. At this point, to be honest with you, we're talking about the 6th offensive play, maybe the 7th. 3 really poor looks, in my opinion, from Emory Jones. And that sets us back because, of course, Ty Robinson sacks Huntley, and it's a loss of 7. We compound the mistake, right, by Luke missing the field goal. But on the 3rd and 17, Vega handled another stunt. But you guessed it, there was a pressure up the middle and the left side. Vincent, I think, was really struggling with the TE stunts early on. So tackle getting upfield and the defensive end looping underneath, or the defensive end going B-gap inside and the tackle looping around. Vincent struggled in recognizing the precursors or the things that could predict it for you. Loop compounded the mistake. It was really poor miss from 49 yards, well right, just not even close. He didn't finish the kick at all, in my opinion. I'm not a kicking expert, but that's what I saw. I'm going to let the game stats flow through here while I talk about the second possession again. I'm trying to focus on the offensive line. So the first play of the second possession is a 12 personnel group, and it's the formation I call broken bunch. We try to run to the bunch side here into the boundary, and we're taking the tight end, the inside tight end who's in a slot position, to the front side, force defender, whoever that would be, and the guard tackle combo on the D end, edge defender, if you will. No one gets up to Jihad Campbell once again. Vega, to me, has pretty good position there, but he's just got no angle. Campbell's climbing over the top. And, really we need to take over the edge defender and let the tackle, the right tackle in this case, get to the inside linebacker, and that just never happened. So it only ended up being a 2-yard gain. You may remember it. Campbell made the tackle, I think on Randall, up to the top side of the screen, only a 2-yard gain. The under center play action stuff started to hit immediately. We go under center play action to Hibner into the boundary. Again, I think we pick up 9 yards. You may recall it, Arnold Ebiketie, a Penn State guy, now on his second NFL team in Philly. He kind of fronts up Huntley really quickly, but there's a horizontal conflict, the run action to our left and the boot to the right. And in this case, Hibner slides out into the flat. The very next snap is Jacoby Lane's first catch. And I want to point something out that really reminds me of the Seahawks last year under Clint Kubiak. Jacoby Lane goes for like 18 yards. It's an 11 personnel group. Again, I'm talking about the second possession, third snap. 18 yards, under center play action. We took advantage of this Eagles defense in those situations. I'll show the stats here in a moment. When I say it's reminiscent of Clint Kubiak in Seattle last year, here's what I mean. Even at times when the run game wasn't generating chunks for Seattle or for us tonight against the Eagles, of course that'll change, right, when Derrick Henry's out there. We stick to it. It opens up the under center play action stuff to hit bigger. The Eagles' front 6 or front 7, they played a very physical brand of defense tonight. In my opinion, Doyle had a bead on how to attack this Fangio structured defense. What would work? Granted, the Eagles didn't have starters out there. Well, neither did Declan Doyle, right? He knew what would work. Under center play action hit those guys big, in my opinion. So I skipped the play here. We get to a 2nd and 7. And this is the play where you may have seen it on social media. Vega kind of peels back and hits the right tackle, hits the guy who's rushing against the right tackle, It's only a 3-man rush on a 2nd and 7. The Baltimore Ravens media, I think, shared a short clip of that play, Vega peeling back on someone. But it's a 3-man rush. There's a hold on Pinter that's kind of late. I give Ross Tucker credit here. He wasn't a huge fan of that penalty, like I said, but it pushes us back to a 2nd and 17. Again, the same issues off the left side. Vincent doesn't handle a stunt well at all, and neither does Emory Jones for that matter. At this point, I think the Eagles know they can just dive the edge player inside, and Vincent's going to be in conflict, number one. Number two, he didn't do a good job, in my opinion, recognizing when he should take a wider, quicker set and when he should not. And the very next snap, the 3rd and 17, after that pressure, it was incomplete to Wester, by the way, over the middle. That very next snap, Huntley got rid of the ball super quick, and Vincent's set wasn't as deep. But the edge defender, Espenza, was wider and got his hand up, actually kind of won, if you ask me, and possibly impacted the throw. So we've got a lot of work to do there, in my opinion, at left tackle and with Emory Jones. I really think Jones played extremely poorly. Vincent, not as bad, but in my opinion, Ledford and the coaches have a ton to work on with both of those guys if they're ever going to see the field at all. All right, forgive me for, diverting too long and talking about the offensive line so much, but in the middle of the game, especially after halftime and seeing some of the reactions about the offensive line play, I wanted to go back and see if I was off base, and if so, by how much. And I just don't feel that I was. I think we heard so much information about the offensive line being radically improved and the coaching level, being able to elevate guys, and in this case, I didn't see it really line up with what we got out on the field on the first 2 possessions. In any case, some good news here, some great stuff, in fact, from the offense. So this is a part of the data tracking that I do. I have the concept or result filtered, so I'm only showing under center play action stuff. You can see there's a variety of personnel groups that are used, either 12 or 11 in this case, but it's all play action pass. I'm kind of getting away with one, to be honest with you, by using this play here. It is the tight end screen to Hibner that I talked about on the third, in fact, I think the 3rd possession. It's a pretty big gain into the boundary, the second iteration of a tight end screen, in fact, but 13-yard gain. Look at the gains that we've got here. From the standpoint of when we go under center, we have a play action look with the quarterback and the running back, and then we put our foot in the ground as a quarterback 8 times here, and according to my tracking, there may have been a couple of more, but 98 yards. Not a single negative yardage play at all among this group. I think that this is very reminiscent of Chicago Bears stuff under Ben Johnson. Declan Doyle was there last year, obviously. Detroit Lions when Ben Johnson was there with Jared Goff, who's superb at play action. I'm really excited to see this stuff, how it works. I mean, wouldn't you imagine that under center play action would work great when Derrick Henry is the guy who's possibly getting the football? So I'm really excited about it. I thought Doyle used this as a hammer blow on Fangio's defense, and you can see the down and distance that these things were called. A couple of 1st and 10s, a 1st and 15. That was a really nice job by picking up the inside linebacker blitz. I think it was Emory Jones in there at left guard, but I could be wrong. And it's the catch that Surratt made, a sliding catch, and the DB who was covering him was called for a hold at the same time. It ended up giving us 18 yards. A number of these occurred in the first half. It's not like we're only talking about, third and fourth quarter data when the Eagles had third string, maybe even fourth string guys out there at a certain amount of time. When you see this many plays have this much success at the NFL level, in my opinion, the offensive coordinator, the offensive staff has identified something that they see will work against the defensive structure that we're facing. In this case, it was the Philadelphia Eagles. I thought our quarterbacks, Huntley and Fagnano, did a great job in these under center play action concepts, averaging over 12 yards per play off of it. I'll continue to let some of the stats flow through here, and we'll kind of shift a little bit and talk about the quarterbacks. Huntley was under siege early, in my opinion, when it wasn't under center play action, that is, but to the point where it's 17-0. We're 28 of 25 passing for, I think, 292 yards. They finished 30 of 37, the 1 touchdown and the 1 interception, which was a great play by Keely Ringo, obviously. I didn't think he caught it at first, but he obviously did. The under center play action data boosts these numbers clearly, but there's still efficiency there as far as a completion percentage, being 30 of 37. Now, the defense was lights out on the other side, so we kept forcing punts. And in fact, like the Eagles' first 3 possessions, when Andy Dalton is in the game, right, they go punt, punt, punt. You're talking about 9 plays overall on those 3 possessions, 12 yards, literally nothing established whatsoever. The key, I think, here, one of the highlights was obviously the young wide receiver group. I mean, they had a huge impact tonight beyond just Jacoby Lane, who lived up to, the billing. But Lane, Surratt, and Tez Walker combined 12 catches on 13 targets, I think 133 or 134 yards, the 1 touchdown. Those 3 guys, Hibner as well, at least tonight, they looked ready to go. The efficiency, however, is what I think is remarkable. Jacoby Lane, 3 catches for 38 yards and the 1 touchdown, right? On 3 targets, so 100% catch percentage. Surratt, 5 catches for 55 yards on 6 targets. He had the 1 fumble. Really poor decision, I think. Ironically, it was Sean Wade who forced it, the former Raven. He apparently has moved around a ton in the last 4 or 5 years. So good to see him out there still competing and hopefully, able to stick around in the NFL. I think he played in the UFL for this year. Hibner, he had the game's first explosive play, 29-yard catch. Doyle, like I said earlier, caught Fangio in a really poor coverage call. Hibner stood out, in my opinion. Really interested to see him continue to play in this preseason, maybe test him some. They did set him up as the backside X. I can't wait for the All-22 film to come out tomorrow morning and see what he looked like on those types of route combinations. So just really amazing development. Devontae Walker, 3 catches on 3 targets. Xavier Guillory, who was the target on the interception by Ringo. Fagnano, I think was really dealing on that possession. Guillory was 2 catches on 3 targets. Dayton Wade, 3 catches on 4 targets. An exceptional night, in my opinion, from the standpoint of the play calls that Doyle had out there in the pass game, how to get those guys open, and things look really different as far as the first downs. I think we had 19 first downs. The stats flowed through a little bit for you guys there earlier on. I think we had 19 first downs through the air, 8 on the ground. That dynamic could clearly switch when Derrick Henry's out there. 440 total yards of offense, 5.8 yards per play. The quarterbacks, I think, finished with 298 through the air, 142 on the ground, and we still turned the ball over twice, but time of possession was in our favor, basically 41-19. Utterly dominant situation from the standpoint of what our offense was able to do statistically over the course of the game. Something to talk about here and mention as far as the efficiency of the quarterbacks and the wide receivers. And the under center play action concepts hitting really every time. I think there may have been one quarterback pressure in one of those play calls that I don't have included in my data tracking there that I showed you earlier. I just couldn't find it, to be honest with you, as far as what I had things labeled. Now, Doyle called plays tonight for the first time in Baltimore. He didn't call plays last year in Chicago. Obviously, Ben Johnson did. He was, however, the offensive coordinator. I point your attention a little bit to when the Bears came to Philly on Thanksgiving weekend last year and bludgeoned the Eagles' defense. I think Doyle has a really good idea of how to attack what Fangio does. When he does those things, I hope that from Ben Johnson, Doyle has the ability to there's one of the things Ben Johnson does a spectacular job of, in my opinion. Besides setting up plays for the third and fourth quarter in the first half, he always seems to catch people in the right coverage. He always seems to know what coverage they're going to be in. Clint Kubiak, same thing. I wonder, and what do those guys share in common, Kubiak and Ben Johnson? They are committed to the run game. In some instances, whether it's working or not, from the standpoint of how many yards it's generating per rush, they're committed to the under center run game and the under center play action. I wonder if there's a control feature there. Some element of control. Basically, they know if we go under center on this 2nd and 7, this particular aspect of the field from this particular personnel group, we know what coverage we're going to get. And then, therefore, I know what routes to call to fit into that area. I'm generalizing there, perhaps, but I'm just calling your attention to the fact that Doyle has now gone against a Philly defense twice inside of the last year. I know he didn't call plays in Philly. And look, Caleb Williams was poor in that game from an efficiency standpoint. I think 17 of 37 passing with 1 interception, but Chicago ran for 281. My point is, I believe Declan Doyle knew he could go to the under center play action well often, and things would hit big. And Huntley and Fagnano and the wide receivers and tight ends, I should say, they were the beneficiaries. All right, so I'm going to leave these stats up here to just talk about our defense. Now, to be honest with you, I did miss a portion of the third quarter. Like I said, I know Keon Martin had 2 plays in the backfield, ended up, I believe, with 4 total tackles overall. Look at the inefficiency of their quarterbacks. Before Cole Payton came in the fourth quarter, and things kind of turned a little chaotic or crazy, if you will. They did have a really nice dual read concept that he hit us for 12 or 13 yards. But from an efficiency standpoint, Tanner McKee and Andy Dalton, 2 quality quarterbacks who've been around for a while. As far as Dalton, the entire NFL league, and then McKee in Philadelphia, they finished 9 of 15 passing for 55 yards. Only 1 sack generated by us. In fact, I believe we only had 2 quarterback hits overall, while Philly had 7. But the game was, defined, in my opinion, by the under center play action concepts that allowed Doyle to put our quarterbacks in advantageous positions and allow our receivers to get to a certain spot with a certain route scheme or concept where the routes are working together. And those guys were all high efficiency compared to their receivers. Darius Cooper, 2 catches, 5 targets. They did have Eli Stowers, 3 catches on 3 targets, the rookie from Vanderbilt, but it only generated 12 yards there. Couple of wide receivers near the bottom of their roster, no catches on 3 targets. Hollywood Brown had the 1 catch out in the flats, but it was only for 4 yards. Everything this defense did worked. We didn't give up much, if any, run game to the running backs at all. Will Shipley generated, I believe, 20 or 22 yards on 7 or 8 carries. Tank Bigsby, a pretty good running back in my opinion, always generally been a backup. 2 carries for 5 yards. Elijah Moore ran a jet sweep, and they only got 2 yards out of it. Basically, it seemed to me as if the defense had all the answers to the test beforehand. Credit to Weaver, Jesse Minter for what play calls he did make. Going against this first-time offensive coordinator, or excuse me, the Eagles' new offensive coordinator, in the case of, I believe, like I said, his name is Mannion. The reality, I think, started to hit as far as what their offense could and couldn't do somewhere around the third or the fourth possession in the first half. So what I mean is they go 3 plays punt, 3 plays punt, 3 plays punt when Andy Dalton is out there. McKee comes in, 3 plays, 7 yards, punt. Now their fifth possession, they did get a little something going, and the ball actually, just got beyond midfield. They did have, however, a penalty, an offensive holding penalty that Ross Tucker complained about for like 2 minutes that I thought was pretty obvious, that set them back after an 8-yard run by Will Shipley had got the ball to midfield. I think I kind of misspoke there. That penalty on the Eagles, I believe, is Majors, one of the offensive linemen, actually pushed the ball back to midfield. They had reached somewhere around our 34 or our 35. But in any case, as far as this game goes, what are you most excited about? I guess what position group? Because for me, it is the wide receiver group. At tight ends, we can include Hibner and Cuevas in there, even though Cuevas didn't obviously have nearly as much impact as Hibner did. I don't know if that's due to the scheme or just who happened to pop open, or if Hibner has been outplaying Cuevas for the entirety of camp. I have no idea about those things. It was just good, first of all, to get some idea of what these guys can do. And our wide receivers here kind of reminded me a little bit of Tylan Wallace when he would play in the preseason. And what I mean by that is this. He was always super high efficiency. In fact, he was high efficiency in the regular season for the last 2 years with us. When he did get in the game, I think Wallace had like 14 catches on 18 targets in his last 2 seasons in Baltimore in the regular season. But in the preseason, he was 10 of 11. I think over a 2-year stretch in the preseason. When you would see Tylan Wallace on the field in the preseason, he didn't belong. He shouldn't have been out there. And to me, Lane, Surratt, and even Hibner, as far as an efficiency standpoint, Tez Walker as well, their efficiency was ridiculous tonight. So it makes me wonder, it makes me excited, number one, to see these guys develop. Number two, it makes me wonder how much more are we going to see of them in the preseason. That third preseason game oftentimes ends up being, at this point in time in the NFL, ends up being, third, fourth string guys just trying to either A, make the roster or get some really good film out there for other teams to possibly evaluate and pick them up in a practice squad situation. I didn't notice much from a running back standpoint other than Adam Randall getting, I think, 12 or 13 carries. The rest of those guys had difficulty getting a ton of space. We only averaged 4 yards per carry, or actually I think a little bit under it, 3.8 or 3.9. From an Eagles standpoint, it was a lot of fun to watch Jeremiah Trotter, I think, is in his third year, number one. And in addition, Jihad Campbell. I think Jihad Campbell may have been out of there a little sooner as far as being on the field or off. Trotter was a lot of fun to watch. You can tell that he knows what he's doing. Another guy that I'm super interested to see the film of is a young guy, rookie, I think UDFA, Maximus Pulley. For the Eagles, had 8 or 9 tackles. From a Ravens standpoint, when you go look at the stats, like, everyone's just showing up. All of the guys on defense seem to do their job. They're very connected. At times, watching the defense, I went back and rewatched the third quarter. At times, it seemed like we had 12 guys on the field. Minter and Weaver appear, at least after one preseason game, to do a great job of understanding what an offense might be trying to do in a particular situation, whether it's 1st and 10, 2nd and 8, or 3rd and 5, and then what coverage/blitz structure to use to match it, and then take away the easy button options that offenses, want to access for their quarterbacks. Conversely, Doyle did those things. That's my point in referencing the under center play action, showing you guys the data that I tracked. Again, I had 8 plays, totaling 98 yards in under center play action. There might have been 1 or 2 missing. In fact, I think there was, like I said earlier, a quarterback pressure that led to an incompletion. In any case, if you guys enjoyed my reaction here to the Ravens' first game, please let me know in the comment section. The situation here is, I think, a little different than last year's preseason defense. Granted, the guys were flying around last preseason under Zach Orr, looked fantastic, and then we go out in the regular season, and they were terrible. If that happens this year with this coaching staff, Jesse Minter and Anthony Weaver, I'd be shocked, to be honest with you. These guys are moving around quickly. Mike Green, Zion Young made a play on a screen. I thought Green at one point in time had a chance to fold in and make a tackle right at or near the line of scrimmage, and didn't wasn't able to make that play. So it'll be interesting to get the film of him and the rest of the guys on defense and see what they did. I was glad that Trenton Simpson I don't think was out there at all. A lot of young guys on defense who played extremely well and shut down pretty much everything the Eagles tried to offer. If you guys enjoyed this video, like I said, please let me know in the comments section if you think other Ravens fans would like to hear my analysis of the game, my reaction, I guess. Then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach. Appreciate you guys' time.